Hello and welcome to At the Heart of Health with Dr. James Markham. In today's well-marketed world, it's hard to know who or even what to believe when it comes to health care. In each program, Dr. Markham, a board-certified behavioral cardiologist, takes a balanced approach using common sense modern medicine and the ultimate source of truth, the Bible, recognizing that at the heart of health is love.
I'm Dr. James Markham, and welcome to the Heart of Health. We're going to be talking with Jim Ayer, who's traveled all over the world and has seen healing and miracles that's been performed. One of the things that's interesting about Heart of Health is we're one of the few health shows out there, one of the few programs that doesn't necessarily focus on technology. You know, we hear a lot about in the United States how we can have this, the MRIs, the CAT scan, the fancy surgeries, the nanotechnology. Well, there's more to healing, there's more to medicine than focusing on that things. And I think we need to hear about some of these things, Jim, and I'm glad you're here to talk about some of the things that you've seen, some of the things that you've experienced around the world.
I'm glad to be here, Jim.
Well, it's nice to hear. Tell us about yourself, your journey, how you got this place where you're traveling all over the world making this television program called Making Waves. How did you start this, and where do you see it going?
Well, it's kind of an interesting journey, because after God woke me up and I came out of I term it the pit of hell, basically, I became a Christian. And after a while, I started making a lot of money. I started everything that in the United States would be termed as success, I had. Mm-hmm. I was a player on Capitol Hill. I had my own radio talk show. I had appearances on television, and et cetera, et cetera. My business was very successful, but I really wasn't completely happy with life. And then one day, through another series of events, basically God touched my heart, touched my life, and I started going out and saying, I've got to do something else. And I started going on mission trips, and I started taking medical personnel, and we started treating people in different countries. And soon I started also doing evangelism, and that one thing led to the other, and here I am today doing a job that I just love so much. Wow.
Now, would you agree with me, and I want to let our listeners think about this for a moment, would you agree that we're all healers?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, in a way that probably nobody really thinks about.
Yeah, and you know, I've thought of that many times. As a cardiologist, sometimes I just fix a symptom or put a Band-Aid on it. But you know, in looking through the research, when we make someone laugh or we have love in a life, we're changing their chemistry.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you've seen that love that can actually change a chemistry.
Well, let me give you an example. Actually, the ministry I'm involved in is a worldwide radio ministry, Adventist World Radio. We broadcast in about 80 of the world's major languages. We contextualize it for the people in their culture, their language, everything else about it. In this one particular country, Ethiopia, a young lady was counseling other women about drugs, about pregnancy, about various things in life. But all the time she's counseling with others, she's feeling terrible herself. She confided in me, she says, my life was horrible. It was a shambles, it was in ruins, and I didn't know what to do. Well, she's driving down the road one day and she's thinking, I'm going to commit suicide. That became her final desire is, this life is no good anymore. I can't find anything that will help me physically, mentally, spiritually, and so I'm going to commit suicide. She happened to turn on the radio, and there was some music she enjoyed, and she began listening to the music for a moment. It turned out it was our station, and a minute or two later, someone came on and shared about the joy that they'd found in accepting Jesus into their life, and there'd been this transformation in their lives, this healing, if you will.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she thought, wow, and she began listening more, and each day she listened, and soon she accepted Christ into her life. And she said, Jim, she says, now I counsel these ladies in a whole different way. She says, I can give them eternal hope. I give them hope right now, but she said, tremendous hope that I never had before. And so I look at that as a real healing process in a way that maybe we don't think of. Yeah. And each one of us have that opportunity to share with others that there is a better life. You see, we weren't created for this few years we have here on planet Earth. God created us for an eternity. So we weren't created for time, we were created for eternity. And when people all of a sudden grasp that, it's healing in our lives.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. And we're going to have more stories and more sharing, more talking about. We're going to be a little bit out of the box today.
I've got a lot of great stories for you, Jim.
We might be talking a little bit about what people don't normally hear on the media. We always hear about the technology. We always hear about what man can do and the newest gadget or the newest pill coming out. Well, today we're going to talk about what God's doing, not only here, but sort of our ultimate plan. Friends, stay with us for this exciting program. We will be right back after this short break.
So here's a question. If you love Jesus, and I mean truly love Him, people will notice, right? I mean, if Jesus is at the center of everything you do, people will have to notice. And that is exactly what Life Talk is all about. You see, at Life Talk, our goal has always been to connect people to the true source of power, Jesus Christ. We know with Jesus at the center of our lives, nothing is impossible.
Hello, I'm Joe Coaches. If you enjoy Heartwise Ministry as much as I do, you just might want to become involved. We would first really appreciate your prayer that God would continue to bless and lead this unique ministry. Also, it is very important that you think about becoming a financial partner supporting us so that we can take this message throughout the world to everyone. Thank you.
Welcome back to Heart of Health. Thank you for joining us. And if you missed our first segment, Jim Ayer, who's traveled all around the world with a television ministry, with radio, is here with us. Jim, I was just thinking about, why should someone watch a program, Heart of Health? What makes us different? What makes us special? And we're not about making money. We're not selling a product. We don't have an herb to sell or a prescription medicine. But at the same time, I think by talking to you, I think our listeners will realize that there's something much more out there that can heal, that can change a life, something that doesn't cause any side effects, that's something that touches your heart. As we sit here, I'm sure things are running through your mind. Do you have anything that you'd like to share as far as some of the experience you had that might let our listeners know that it's more about what we're hearing in our media? It's more about the technology. It's more than just about the medicine. There's something more out there.
As I travel around, it's exciting to me because I get to talk to people around the world who have heard a radio program, just a radio program, and they begin listening. And all of a sudden, their entire lives are changed. And you say, there's got to be more to than just airwaves. There's got to be more than they just connected up to a program and a program they like. There's something behind that program, and that what I believe, because I found it in my own life, it's a peace that comes from a God who loves us. Now, I know, as you say, this is a health program, but that's where the real health begins, is finding peace and happiness through a God who originally made us, not for the mess that we're in, but He created us for a wonderful life, and that's where He wants to bring us back to. An example, one young lady was a prostitute, and she had a child out of wedlock, and this child was sick, and she loved the child dearly. Well, she went to every doctor she could, and there was no healing for this child, it seemed. One day she turns on the radio, and she begins hearing other people sharing their testimonies about how God had healed them. And she thought, I'm going to send a letter to that radio station, ask them to pray for my son. And if there is a God up there, if there is any kind of God anywhere, that He will heal this child, and I'll believe in Him. You know, she sent in that letter, and 2 days later, and I think that's about the time it took for the mail to get there, her child was healed. And now I've been with her, and she just radiates. I mean, just a beautiful glow. And that's what I've seen in so many people in villages, in mountain areas, in cities. There's something just different. You can pick out these people out of a crowd because they almost have a glow about them. It's exciting. I mean, I could share story after story of changed lives, Jim, because of this power that comes in and takes over a person's life.
Wow. You know, in the world we live in, it's so fast-paced. You know, everyone wants to think about me, I. And the selfishness pervades, but really at the heart of health is really love. And that love comes, you know, we weren't created to live the life we're living.
Yeah.
You know, we were created to have something much more. And that's the message in health that we all have to get. So the health and the spiritual part are one, and they go together.
Absolutely. Do we have time for another
Yes,
story?
we do.
Let me share one that I'd heard about a fortune teller in this one particular area in Africa. So I went to visit this fellow. He'd been a fortune teller for 42 years. And if you don't believe the fortune tellers, if you're in that village and you don't believe the fortune teller, you could die. And if people do die, they say it's because they didn't listen to the fortune teller. Well, this fellow heard our program, and he was astonished. He'd never heard anything like it. And soon he accepted Jesus into his life, and he shared with someone else in the village, and then someone else. And soon as he shared, more and more people began believing. And this continued around the village until there was about 30 people that were believing. Now, it's interesting, in a prison far away, there had been a fellow from that very village. He had turned on the radio, heard the same program, and he accepted the Lord into his life. Now, he couldn't wait to get home to tell more people in the village. He didn't know what was already going on there. He got home and he was astounded, but he began telling more people. And soon they had a whole large group, Jim, of believers, but now they needed a place to meet. They were worshiping out in the dust and under the trees. They went to a lady's house and said, "You have a large house. Can we meet in your house?" While they were in discussions with this lady, she died. Now, I had 5 men. I was interviewing all 5 men. And every man to a person, I guess the way I'd say it, everyone said she died. But now that lady was standing right there in the middle of this group of men. These men had prayed for her, and God had raised her back up to life, and she'd given her home to the church now.
Wow.
And I mean, you talk about healing in multiple ways. God healed an entire village, and then he raised up this woman, and that village is transformed.
Yeah, and you know, this is the type of medicine, this is the type of healing we have to get back to. Because as we get back to the original plan, then everything else makes sense. You know, God does use modern medicine, and God uses other people to heal. Friend, these stories are very exciting, and I hope you don't go away, and we'll be right back. There's a place for modern medicine, but that's not enough. There's a place for lifestyle, but that's not enough.
The real truth in medicine, the real truth in healing comes from that relationship with the Heavenly Father. That relationship can show us the balance, when to use modern medicine, when to use lifestyle, and to use it for the right reasons. Well, this book gives the solution to the healthcare dilemma. It answers the question, why am I sick? How do I get better? And how can I have ultimate healing? I'm Dr. James Markham, and I talk to patients every day who want to know the truth in healthcare. On our website, heartwiseministries.org, you can have your questions answered. You can read my blog where I talk about interesting and controversial subjects in medicine. You might choose to go to the radio or television sections and learn more about all sorts of health topics. Take the time and go to heartwiseministries.org.
Welcome back to Heart of Health. We're glad you're joining us today. We've been talking about healing around the world in a sort of a new perspective with Jim Ayer, who's been in many different countries and seen many different things, certainly more than I have. Unfortunately, Jim, I've been trained in modern medicine, and we talk about acute care and fixing problems, but we really don't fix it sometimes. We just sort of put a Band-Aid on it. And in the media world we live today that glorifies that, and there's more, everything's about medicine and treatment and fixing acute problems. You've told us a wonderful story. If someone out there listening might want to hear these stories again, is there any way they can watch them or hear more of these stories? Because these stories are the type of stories we need to know, because we need to know there's something bigger out there.
Well, we do have on our website, it's just www.awr.org.
Okay.
They can go on and punch Making Waves. That's the name of our TV series that we tell and interact and do some of these stories from around the world.
So it's run by www.
.awr.org.
And then they can go on Making Waves, and they can
Waves.
see some of these stories, and maybe they could even see a picture.
Oh yeah, they're basically half-hour TV programs we've got on there, and we've got many of them cataloged.
And I hear you wear a hat on location.
Yeah, I wear an Aussie hat, covers up my bald head.
Is that really why you wear it? Is it just to add some distinguishedness?
Well, it's out there in the field, and it really does help, because a lot of these countries have got a blazing hot sun, and I'm out there all day long, so it would burn my head up. But
well, do you ever feel like when you're going from village to village and meeting these people and talking to them, do you actually feel like a doctor or healer? Do you actually feel that inside?
Well, it's a real blessing to me, because actually many times now, I used to travel and we'd take teams, medical teams and various things to offer help, but now it's more of I get to hear stories and participate in that way of just hearing these phenomenal stories.
And you're getting to pass them on to other people that might not get to hear this story.
May I share one with you, Jim?
Yes.
That it just came to mind, and people may not believe this, but in this one particular country where we were working, it's the custom many times that if the family has no money, they will sell the children as slaves or prostitutes. And in this one particular country, this little girl just turned 10 years old, and we had befriended her in the area where we were. We had just befriended her. Sweetest little thing. Turned 10 years old, they put her up for sale. And my wife, when I came home that night, my wife said, "You'll never believe what's going on, what's happening." Well, I couldn't. In a North American mind, I just couldn't imagine such a thing.
Wow.
Well, we all sat down to dinner and had some friends with us. They'd done a lot of mission work with us. And as we talked, he said, "Jim," he said, "why don't you buy her?" I thought, why don't I buy her? Well, I hadn't even thought of such a thing, but as we talked and as we prayed about it, we thought, yeah, let's do that. So we said, okay, we'll buy her. And you know how much we paid? Yeah, I know, you'll never guess. $10. We bought a little girl for $10. And Jim, we put her in school. We did many things for her. They're just incredible to save this little girl. And then we gave money to the mother and tried to help the family so that they wouldn't sell any more of the children. Now, we found, as we're there, we found another situation where we were able to buy a cow. I know it sounds kind of funny. We bought a cow with a calf, giving good milk and bred back, and for $140. Now we took that to this family, and that changed not only the family, that changed an entire village. It changes the economy of an entire village. And you think, you talk about healing, I mean,
Yeah.
This is real healing in action for these people. I mean, it's the greatest thing that ever happens to them in life. And so you ask, can I make a difference? Can your viewers make a difference? You know, one person at a time, we can make a huge difference in this life if we just choose to.
Yeah. Wow. And if this girl wouldn't have been, if you'd have been sold, her whole life would have been a prostituted life? I mean, is that what happens to these kids?
Prostitution or slavery. We've seen many of these children that they have handlers, and they force them to be in rickshaws and pedal big old plump guys around all over the place, you know, for almost nothing. In some of these countries, the parents actually break the limbs of the children and deform them on purpose because they make better beggars and they can collect more money. We just can't appreciate how good we have it here in America.
Wow, that's amazing. Are you still keeping in touch with this group, this family, or have you lost touch through the years?
We now have over many years. We've lost touch now.
Wow.
But you know, for many years we've supported them and
well, you know, it's going to be interesting someday, as like you said, people minister to each other one at a time, help change their chemistry through love and concern and service. How this makes such a big difference, maybe much so than taking a prescription medication or having a surgery.
See, I would have never appreciated that, though, had not God changed my life.
Wow. Well, in our next segment, when we come back from break, we're going to be talking to Jim Ayer about the message he would like to give to the world about healing. Because all of us have a healing message that God's put in our hearts that we can share, whether it be one-on-one or with everyone. Well, we're going to ask him what he would want to share with the entire world after this short message.
You can easily spend $90 on an expensive meal out. How about investing $89.94 in your future? Just think about the possibility of coming off those prescription pills and getting rid of all the side effects. Think about feeling better than you have ever felt in your life. This is all possible for you. For only $89.94, you will receive a 7-part DVD series, Weight Management by the Book, a 30-lesson workbook with over 100 recipes, and if ordered today, exercise tubes will be included for free to help with your journey. There are many programs available, but this unique program has identified the truth about how to manage weight. This program is not available in stores. This limited offer will not last long. Pick up the phone now and dial 877-504-9628. Operators are standing by. This call will change your life forever.
Welcome back to Heart of Health. I'm Dr. James Markham, and I hope you've been watching us all along as we've been talking about a unique perspective on healing and medicine today. I think about some of the health programs out there, and they focus on all the technology and all the fancy stuff, and they have all these on-location sites of surgeries and all this. We don't really do it that way here at Heart of Health. We sort of take a different perspective. Not that the other programs are bad, they have their place, but we need in the media to hear stories like you've been telling us about how there's a God that's in charge of the healthcare plan. And when He's at top of healing, things sort of work out, whether that be acute care or not, because we could all have healing someday. I'm holding this book you wrote, He Shall Lift You Up, and this is sort of what we've been talking about. And I guess, what's this book about, Jim? And you know, what brought you to this book and decided to write it?
Well, Jim, it's a little bit of my own journey, my own personal struggles. I would come home many times and get down on my knees at night and say, Lord, I'm so sorry I did this. I'm so sorry I did that. But the interesting thing, it's always the same thing, over and over and over. No new sin, just all the same ones, over and over and over.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, and it just was driving me crazy. And then through, an interesting series of events which I believe were heavenly ordained, all of a sudden I realized, wait a second, it's not about me. I'm calling myself a Christian, it's all about God. And I began reading through the Bible, and I began looking at God's a God of power. He never lost one single battle in all the Bible. He's going to win the war. We can read the end of the book and He wins the whole war. So why am I having all these troubles now? And I really realized it's because I really wasn't surrendering myself, even though I thought, oh, you know, I'm walking the walk. But I really wasn't. It's kind of like the preacher who said, got to the platform there, and he was on his knees. He said, Lord, he said, yesterday I gave you all my troubles, I gave you all my trials and all my problems. He said, but today, Lord, he said, I promise to give you all of the troubles and the string that I was holding on to yesterday. And we tend to want to just hold on to something. And the Bible says, this is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom thou hast sent. The word know there is very important, because we read that Adam knew his wife and they conceived a child, which means it's extremely intimate. God wants to enter into a friendship with us that we cannot imagine. He wants to become your very best friend. He wants to become mine. He wants to become the viewer's very best friend. And so here's a situation where, how do you do that? I can only become your best friend if I spend time with you. If your wife called you up on the cell phone right now and said, hi honey, and you say, who is this? Who'd you say you were? How long would you be married?
Not very long.
Not very long. And it's the same way with the Lord. If we don't spend that personal time getting to know His voice, you see, the Bible says that His sheep hear His voice. And unless we get to know Him through studying, through praying, through spending time with Him, we're not going to have victory. But all of a sudden, when we know Him, He can come and live in us, and He's never lost a battle. If He's living in us, He's victorious. If He's doing these things, He's victorious. The cover of the book, you'll notice it's a guy reaching up out of the water who's about ready to drown. I picked that from Peter, who was out there, and the Lord bid him, come on, get out of the boat and walk over here. And he turned around and he looked at the other disciples like, hey, check me out. And he sank. He took his eyes off the Lord. But then the next instance we never think about. Jesus came over when he yelled, Lord, help me. He picked him up and raised him up, and arm in arm, the two of them walked all the way back out to the boat on top of the water. Now, this is what God wants for every one of us. That's what He wants for every one of your viewers, too, is to make them water walkers. Wow. We can't do it on our own.
Wow. So your solution, your answer to the healthcare problem, your prescription to this world is let God be your doctor. Have an appointment with Him. Let Him give the prescriptions and the guidance of a life.
Now, He may work through doctors, too, but yes, Him first.
That is wonderful. That's wonderful. Friend, if you'd like to ask a question or learn more about Heartwise Ministries, go to our website. That's heartwiseministries.org. And I hope you've had a blessing as much as I had from spending time with Jim Ayer today on At the Heart of Health.
I'm Dr. James Markham, and I talk to patients every day who want to know the truth in healthcare. On our website, heartwiseministries.org, you can have your questions answered. You can read my blog where I talk about interesting and controversial subjects in medicine. You might choose to go to the radio or television sections and learn more about all sorts of health topics. Take the time and go to heartwiseministries.org.